Hi there, I'm Dizzy, and earlier this year I decided that I wanted to be a VTuber. The problem? VTuber models cost a lot of money and I am broke. For premium quality art and rigging, models can cost anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000. That's almost 4 months worth of rent money for me. So I figured I can draw. How hard can it be? Spoiler alert, it's really hard. I thought I'd be able to make my model in just 1 month, but it took closer to 4 to 5. In this video, I'll take you through the journey of creating the model you see right now from concept to completion. I used Clip Studio Paint to create all of the artwork featured, and all of the rigging was done using Live 2D. Disclaimer, this is not a step-by-step tutorial on how to make a Live 2D model, although I do have advice sprinkled throughout the video that you might find useful if you're attempting to make your own model as well. The concept. In order to be a VTuber, you first have to come up with a concept design. Your design is your branding, and so it's really important in building recognition in the VTubing space. There's a lot of pressure on this part. I wanted my model to be a combination of things that I love. I chose to make her a ferret since, number one, I am obsessed with them, and two, ferrets are notoriously really silly animals and a bit nefarious, which fits me very well. I took inspiration from the J-fashion style called Mori K for her clothes. I used earthy tones like brown and cream, and I also gave her an oversized sweater. I think the silhouette of the sweater combined with her short spiky hair is pretty recognizable. For a pop of color, I gave her a red collar. I think collars on characters are really cute. Plus, she's supposed to be a pet ferret, so it fits into the lore, the model art. Throughout my studious research, I learned that a symmetrical model is much easier to rig than an asymmetrical model is, especially for beginners. So I started with the symmetry tool, my biggest op. This was a huge learning curve for me because I never draw symmetrical artwork. Never. And everything looked really stiff and janky. Took me a really long time to make it not look hideous. I watched a few tutorials on YouTube, and I also followed a random separation guide that I found on Twitter to learn how to separate/cut the model art. Basically, there are many different ways that you can do it, but in the end, you just need to have every individual piece that's going to move into its own layer, organized into sections for left and right. For some reason, the industry standard is to go based off of the model's left and right, not yours, so it's reversed. I don't know why this is the standard, it just makes everything way more confusing. I'm sure there's a real reason, it's just beyond my comprehension. I had to draw left and right markers on the canvas to help me remember this. For separating, I did a combination method of drawing and separating as I go. And then further down the line, I did even more separating as needed. Honestly, this was very difficult for me because I've never rigged anything before, so I didn't have a good idea of what needed to move. I relied pretty heavily on tutorials that I found online across various platforms. All of these tutorials were free because I am broke. At this point, I decided I wasn't going to make a full body model because I'm lazy. And just the top half took me like 10 hours to do. Plus, you don't even really use the full body. The only time that I see VTubers using their full model are for events like concerts or pool streams. And let's just say I will not be virtually swimming or performing. That would not be a fun experience for you or for me. You'll notice that the hair on my model is crazy detailed, and it took me the longest. This is because I am a sadist and I enjoy suffering. It was also a terrible idea, but I'll go more in depth about that later on when we get to the process of rigging the hair. For the sweater, I used a brush I found on the Clip Studio Paint asset store as a base texture, and then I drew on top of it to give the sweater a bit more depth. I also used the liquify tool to make it look like it's actually warping around the body. And boom, the artwork for my model was finished. I love how it turned out, but the layer management honestly still haunts me to this day. I mean, there must have been well over 100 layers. Learning to rig. The whole process of trying to learn how to rig was a complete disaster. I started with head angles, which was literally the worst choice I could have possibly made, because head angles are notoriously hard. I tried following one tutorial that didn't make any sense to me, so I switched to a different one, which made a little bit more sense, but I didn't like how it turned out. I still didn't understand what parameters or keyforms were, which made me realize I needed to start with the basics. Chupico's beginner live 2D tutorials were extremely helpful for me in this process. I felt like she broke it down in an easy to understand format, and I decided to switch to rigging the eyes, which by the way would have been a much better place to start. I think they turned out okay. I did have to redraw the iris and then import this new artwork into Live 2D because the original iris that I drew was all squash and oblong, like a grape or something. It was doing really funky things when I tried to rig them. After that, I started on the mouth. I must have thought I was the Live 2D prodigy 200 IQ biggest brain Vtuber because for some reason, I thought I could just raw dog it using a random furry mouth chart I found online, and it turned out horrible. The movements were janky, the lip mask that covers the inner movements of the mouth was just flying all over the place. It was really bad. Really bad. Realizing that I was not yet at that level, I went back to YouTube to look for more tutorials. I knew that I wanted to incorporate a software known as VBridger, so I went looking for a VBridger specific tutorial. For those of you who don't know, VBridger is a software that enables you to have more accurate facial tracking, specifically for like the mouth. What I found was my holy grail, the official 5-part VBridger tutorial series by Pipu Productions. This tutorial series covered the entire head, from face angles to the mouth to the eyes. I decided to completely scrap everything I had done so far, excluding the blinking. I was happy with how my model blinked, and start over following this tutorial series. Rigging the face. Rigging the face. Following the VBridger tutorials, I had to redo all of my mouth masking in order to make it work. After fixing the masks and following every single step in the tutorial, I was able to successfully rig the mouth. Using glue meant no more janky masking flying all over the place. Once I was happy with the mouth, I went to the physics menu to try out some of the shapes for the eyes and the mouth, and I was met with this absolute monstrosity. Stuff of nightmares. From there, I again attempted the head angles. Pipu's method of utilizing the 3D expression menu was so different than any of the other tutorials I watched, but it was a lot of fun. And the head angles turned out so much better than before. I did have to elongate the neck a bit since I originally did not make it long enough. Once I was satisfied with the head angles, I was able to go in and individually tweak the facial features so that they looked more 3D at all of the different angles. And bam! Convincing bald head rotation, rigging the hair and the ears. Hair is an entirely different beast. So many parts. I decided to mesh each strand individually because I hate myself. My first attempt meshing them actually almost crashed my laptop. My mesh was so dense that Live 2D was taking up 80% of my system memory, so I had to clear everything that I had already done and start over with a less dense mesh. This entire process was done on my old gaming laptop, so it was struggling. It wasn't able to handle recording and meshing, so unfortunately, I don't have any footage for the rest of the hair meshing. After the mesh came rigging, and boy did this part suck. Definitely the worst part of this entire process. Remember earlier when I said I would come to regret making the hair so detailed? Well, this is why. Because I shaded everything with about 6 trillion lines, the hair strands can get warped in really strange ways. I spent a lot of time just trying to smooth out the deformers to get rid of the jankiness. Lesson learned. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of how the angles turned out. I think it looks a little off sometimes, but I'm tired of working on this thing, so it's fine. After finishing the hair angles, I started working on the ears, which was surprisingly a lot of fun. My first attempt, I kid you not, I tried to rig them with no mesh. When you first import art into Live 2D, it's got like 1 or 2 little dots of mesh, and that's what I was working with. I didn't even use like the standard mesh. I forgot to mesh them. Did not turn out good. So my second try, I did mesh them this time, and I also used some glue so that the front and the back layers move together. I couldn't really find any good tutorials on glue, so I used the Live 2D manual as a reference. I definitely did not do it correctly, but it worked, so whatever. Hair and ear physics. I went back to Chupaco's Live 2D tutorial series to learn how hair physics works. I ended up using her method of temporary path deformers. I had no idea what was happening or what I was doing, but the end result isn't the ugliest thing I've ever seen, so I figure I could live with it. The ears were surprisingly very difficult. Again, I couldn't find any good tutorials for this kind of animal ear specifically, but the ears move a little bit, so there's that. Upper body rig. I'm not gonna lie, I straight up did not record this part. I had OBS open the whole time, but forgot to press record. So I don't have any footage. But again, I followed Chupaco's tutorial for body angles. Turned out really stiff. I don't think I pushed the angles far enough, but I'm so over it at this point that it's okay with me for now. I did a lot of test tracking in VTube Studio, and then tweaked a bunch of things like the physics and the body angles again, even though they're still stiff. And after all of that, I finally have my finished model. A little clickbait, because it's really just like the top half of this model. Conclusion. Rigging is really hard. I knew it wouldn't be easy to create a Live 2D model, and that it would take a while, but I seriously underestimated the amount of time it would take. I initially thought I could do the whole thing in like a month, but it really took me closer to like 4 or 5 months. I work a full-time job of 40 hours a week, and so essentially I'd work on the model after work and on the weekends. I easily put over 100 hours into this project from conception to completion. And honestly, I don't think I want to do it ever again, even though I probably will end up doing it again. It was so much work, oh my god. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm shocked if anybody made it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed my rambling, feel free to subscribe or like the video. This is my art channel, and in the future I might post art and commentary videos. I also have a gaming channel that will be linked down below, where I play games like Terraria and, in the future, Minecraft. I hope to see you again soon.
Ahmed Mohsin.